We are now into round 2 of postseason play. The weather might be getting colder, but the games are just starting to heat up. We saw some history this past weekend in the 7-4-0, and we have all that action for you here as we start the 7-4-0 zone right now. Welcome back, everybody, to the 7-4-0 zone. I'm your host, Jacob Murray, and I'm here to bring you along the slate of Week 2 action for postseason play. We start off right away in the MBL, where the Sheridan Generals had a tough test against Columbus South in their first playoff game of the year. We have reporter Alex Porter out at that game to see another Generals defensive shutout.
The second round of the playoffs takes us to Thornville, where the Sheridan Generals took on the Columbus South Bulldogs. The Bulldogs are coming off an opening round victory over Bell Fountain and are looking to continue their own playoff run. Right from the kickoff, the Bulldogs shortly found out that the Generals won't be an easy task, as they get a dose of Sheridan's defense, compliments of Shea Taylor. On the opposite side of the ball, Jason Munyon would get the gears for the offense rolling as he would find his way into open field, making a few defenders miss and getting just short of the goal line. But no problem, however, as one play later he would add another touchdown to his season total and 2 more plays to the highlight reel. But Munyon wouldn't be the sole contributor to the scoring. Joshua Ryan would evade a foreseeable blitz by South, find Logan Rampt on the slant, and Rampt would take it to the house. The Generals would walk into the locker room at the half with a 21-0 lead and a rattled Columbus South team. The second half wouldn't turn out to be as high scoring, but the Generals managed to get the job done. Midway through the third quarter, Jason Munyon would record his 3rd touchdown on the game as he finds the gap on the left side of the line. Sheridan would add another shutout to the list of accomplishments this season, limiting South's run-heavy offense to minimal yards on the game.
I talked with head coach Paul Culver III after the game, and he details a little bit how preparing for an unfamiliar foe is, especially for their game next week in Bishop Watterson.
Interestingly enough, that we scrimmaged Watterson earlier this year, so we have not a good feel for them, obviously, but a scrimmage worth of feel 6-7 weeks ago. So we're excited about getting to play a good team. We're excited about another home game, but there's always the unknown, like how much better they've gotten in the last 6 weeks. They're not the same team that they were 6-7 weeks ago. We're not the same team we were 6-7 weeks ago. So you just got to keep the kids focused on getting better at what we do and who we are.
With the big 27-0 win over South, Sheridan will continue their hot streak next week as they take on 6th-seeded Columbus Bishop Watterson at home. Reporting for the 7-4-0 zone, I'm Alex Porter.
Next week will be a matchup of the 3 and the 6 seed in Thornville as the Generals look to get the win in that one and play one final home game at Paul Culver Stadium. Thanks for the good work, Alex. Now we head over to Jackson, where we saw the Ironmen take on the TriValley Scotties in a 7 and 10 seeded matchup in Region 11. We have reporter Will Price out of that game to catch up on the exciting action on Friday night.
Both teams were 5-1 in the regular season, and it came down to the wire in this memorable matchup. TriValley up 7-0 to start the second half. Here's Blake Sands on the sweep, following his blocks and getting across the goal line to make it 14-0 Scotties. Final play of the third quarter, Jackson finally gets on the board. Cade Wolford on a race to the pylon, and he will win. Missed extra point makes it 14-6 heading into the final frame. Ironman with the ball after a turnover. Evan Spires has time, and he will find Wolford for his 2nd touchdown of the game. Failed 2-point conversion makes it 14-12. Less than 2 minutes to go now. Jackson ball, 4th down with the season on the line. Spires looking for anyone, finally finds Wolford in traffic to move the chains. Jackson stays alive. 3 plays later, Spires looking for Tristan Prater. Ball gets tipped into the air, and it's Aiden Fritter grabbing the one-handed interception to seal the game. TriValley moves on 14-12.
Now this game came down to the wire, but what was the difference on Friday?
The Scotties defense managed to make plays when it mattered. Twice they forced turnovers when Jackson was inside the 25 about to score. They did a great job of limiting big plays all day. In a defensive slugfest, they were able to do a little more.
Yeah, it was tough going for both sides offensively, but what worked well for TriValley?
Aiden Fritter did a great job extending drives all night. He used his arm and his legs for big conversions on 3rd and 4th down throughout the game. In a game where every point mattered, those plays were essential.
Yeah, for Jackson, tough end of the season with back-to-back losses. This is a very young team, though.
They only had 8 seniors this year, and while they are losing key guys on both sides of the ball, there is a lot to be excited about. Wolford played a huge role with 2 touchdowns and an interception, and he was only a freshman. This offense has the potential to be dangerous next year. This loss will sting all offseason, but there's a lot to look forward to for the Ironmen.
With this win for TriValley, they now have a date with the 2nd seed in the region in Bishop Hartley. Thanks for the good work, Will. Now, we would see the Eastmoor and Granville game next up in our show, but sadly that game got postponed, and that means Granville will be moving on to the next round, where they will take on Columbus DeSales in an interesting matchup in the 3rd round. We'll be sure to catch you up on the action from that game when it happens. But now we move over to the Eastern Eagles, who have never won a playoff game coming into this matchup against Caldwell, and we had reporter Zach Paquette out of that game to see if they could finally get over the hump.
11-seeded Eastern Eagles taking on 6-seeded Caldwell in this huge playoff matchup. And the Eagles would strike first. Steve Fitzgerald takes the carry up the middle, breaks a few tackles, and he'll be brought down just a couple yards short. He'll score a few plays later. 7-0 Eagles. Caldwell ensuing drive. Ball pops free. Eagles jump on it. They'll take over deep into Caldwell territory, and they'll make him pay. Brady Yonker will barrel his way in from a yard out. It's 13-0 Eagles, but they're just getting started. Next drive for Eastern. Steve Fitzgerald again, up the middle. Fakes out the cameraman, but he'll score standing up 23 yards out. And yeah, you should celebrate, big fella. You're up 20-0. But Caldwell wouldn't go down quietly. Braxton Dudley fires a pass, finds Dawson Moore in the back of the end zone. 20-8 Eagles after the 2-point conversion. And on to the second half. Steve Fitzgerald again, 21-yard score. It's 26-8 Eagles at this point, and they would hang on to win 26-14 for their first ever playoff win. Big difference maker was Steve Fitzgerald on Friday night, who rushed for 229 yards and 3 scores, and even hurdled a few defenders.
I kind of get in trouble for doing it in practice. Coach tells me to stand on the ground, but, you know, you gotta let the big dog eat.
And with the 26-14 victory, the Eastern Eagles win their first ever playoff game, and they'll look to ride the momentum next week when they take on River High School.
Main thing is we're going to have a great week of practice. We haven't seen a lot on them because we don't have any opponents that are similar. So we're going to get the films, and we're going to coaches are going to get to work. We're going to Coach Thompson, Coach Buchanan, they make great game plans. We're going to get to work Monday and get ready to go. Yeah, and that's why everybody these great efforts in the game. I mean, those are all the kids, but what we do in practice the whole week that allows that to happen, and that's what we're going to do.
Reporting for 740 Zone, I'm Zach Paquette.
Congrats to the Eastern Eagles on their first playoff victory. They'll look to keep the momentum going next week when they take on River. Thanks for the good work, Zach. Now, Bern Union got their first playoff win in Week 7 for the first time since 1994. Reporter Jacob Mata went out to check up on how the upward swing has been happening out in Bern Union.
The Bern Union Golden Rockets have had a spectacular season so far, going 5-1 in the regular season, and they beat the Zanesville Bishop Rosecrans in the first round of the state playoffs, in which they are a 9 seed. Much of the success is thanks to head coach Tony Herbst, who became the head coach of the program in 2018 and has posted an 18-9 record since taking over the head coaching job. He turned the program around after having a 4-6 record in the 2017 season. In 2018, they finished with a 7-3 record, the best the team's seen since the 1994 season. Some of his greatest success as a head coach has come this season as the Rockets won their first league title since the 1994 season. This was a special moment for the players and Coach Herbst, and his reaction after the game says it all.
Worthington Christian's a really good team, and we knew that going in. Last week we took the L, but I told those guys, you got to learn. And we learned a whole bunch, and we had to play 4 quarters, and we knew we got down early, and it's just a great feeling for these kids. First time since '94. Up front, we played awesome. Big Chris figured out how to run. It was a team effort.
The team is led by sophomore quarterback Nate Nemeth, who has shown that he can perform in big games when the Rockets faced off against the Worthington Christian Warriors in the league title game, and he has not thrown an interception in the last 2 weeks, and he's shown great time management on the field. Chris Prince has also performed extremely well in the last 2 weeks against the Warriors and the Rosecrans. Prince had a total of 6 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, including an 83-yard interception return for a touchdown in the league title game against the Warriors, so he's proving he can get it done on both sides of the ball. Prince also had 20 carries for 178 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in the league title game, not to mention this is his first year playing football. This is the Rockets' first season in the playoffs since 1994 as well, so that is another huge achievement for all of the players as well as Coach Herbst. The Rockets travel to Piketon High School to face off against the 8-seeded Eastern Beaver Eagles in what should be a great matchup for the second round. If the Rockets can take care of business against the Eagles, they will set up to go against the winner of the number 1-seeded Trimble Tomcats and the 16-seeded Woodsfield Monroe Central Seminoles. Reporting for 740 Zone, I'm Jacob Mata.
Now we take a look at the game that the Rockets had to play where they took on Eastern Beaver, an 8-9 matchup, and let's see how this game played out.
The Bern Union Golden Rockets faced off against the Eastern Beaver Eagles in a second-round Division VII playoff matchup. The Eagles struck first after Bern Union fumbled on their very first offensive play when Dylan Maddox took the handoff and ran 33 yards to the end zone, and after a 2-point conversion, the Eagles led 8-0.
After giving up a turnover on the very first play of the game and then a quick score, Coach Herbst kept the morale up with this message to his team.
Talk about our composure and moving on one play at a time. Do your best, doesn't matter the outcome. We stole that from Nick Saban. And, I think our guys really bought into it. And, it's tough when you put yourself in a hole like that. Have 2 turnovers right off the get-go. Give up a quick score and a 2-point conversion. But our guys hung in and really rallied second quarter.
The Rocket defense seemed to settle in when Sammy Amna intercepted quarterback Wyatt Hines' pass and Bray Frazier capitalized with a 6-yard touchdown run off a pitch from quarterback Nate Nemeth. The score was 8-6 Eagles. The Eagles then quickly responded with a 67-yard touchdown pass from Hines to wide receiver Logan Clemens, making the score 15-6 Eastern over Bern Union. Fast forward to the next Rocket drive, Nemeth throws a jump ball into the back of the end zone, and Amna comes down with it over 2 defenders for an 18-yard touchdown catch. The score is now 15-12, Eagles still in the lead. Bray Frazier would then pin the Eagles on their own 1-yard line with a punt a few drives later. Chris Prince took care of the rest, sacking Hines for safety, making the score 15-14, Eagles clutching to a 1-point lead. Prince then did what he does best, breaking tackles and dancing around defenders all the way to the end zone for a 45-yard touchdown run. The 2-point conversion failed, leaving the score 20-15, Rockets taking their first lead of the game. Prince found the end zone again one more time for the Rockets, this time from 2 yards away. The 2-point attempt was converted by Colt McCormick to make the score 28-15 Rockets. Fast forward, 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Hines finds Bryce Myers in the end zone for a 30-yard touchdown pass to bring the Eagles within one score, 28-22. The Rockets would then fumble on their next drive, giving the Eagles one last sliver of hope, but that hope was ripped away on 4th and 11 when senior linebacker Carson Kellenbarger flew into the backfield and sacked Hines and forced a turnover on downs. With seconds left, the Rockets would take a knee, and the final would be 28-22. The Rockets are moving on. Reporting for 740 Zone, I'm Jacob Mata.
Bern Union advances to take on the Trimble Tomcats in the regional quarterfinal of this Division VII Region 27 matchup. Thanks for the good work, Zach. Now we had an absolute thriller out in Vincent, Ohio that lasted more than 4 quarters. Reporter Nick Veland was out at that one to catch this thriller and its exciting ending.
Second round of the playoffs as John Glenn traveled to Warren, and this one lived up to all of the hype. Starting drive for John Glenn in the second play of the game, Noah Wilmeyer finds the gap and will take this one all the way into the end zone, giving John Glenn the early lead 7-0. John Glenn leading 14-5 as Warren, trying to cut into the lead before half, will throw an interception to Blade Barclay. And bad goes to worse for Warren as Barclay will take it all the way back into the end zone. No time remaining on the clock as John Glenn takes a 21-5 lead going into the second half.
I was super frustrated, not only with how the game was going, but specifically myself. I made a couple bad decisions that led to interceptions, especially that last one right there. But, being a team captain and leader, I still had to have confidence. We went to halftime, coaches talked to us, we went out there, and we did our thing in the second half.
Warren starts the second half with a drive down the field that will end with a touchdown, which makes it now a 10-point game. Their defense forcing stops the entire second half, giving Warren opportunities. Now as we head to the final quarter, Kirk Taylor leading their offense down the field, and it results in another Warren touchdown and Kirk Taylor's second touchdown of the game. A 3-point game with time winding down, Joel Chevalier will nail the field goal to tie this game and send it into overtime. One overtime wasn't enough, so here we go in the second. Braden Gerber will drive into the end zone and put Warren up by 7. John Glenn's chance as Warren's defense will force a 4th down.
John Glenn now set up on the 2-yard line. Dean is scoring to send this game into triple overtime, and here is what went down.
Blade Barclay gets the snap and tries to run it into the end zone, and Warren's defense says not today, as Warren comes back from being down 21-5 to win 35-28 and sends them in to the next round.
We're just so resilient right now. These guys, I don't know if you guys heard me talking to them, but they're gonna be tough to kill right now. They just got the heart of warriors, and they're playing for each other, and it's gonna take a special effort to knock us out.
Warren will take on St. Clairsville next week. Thanks for the good work, Nick. Now we head over to the Heath and Cambridge matchup, where Heath is trying to win 2 playoff games for the first time in team history. Reporter Michael Wart-Roth was out at that game to see if they could get it done.
Heath hosting Cambridge in Division IV playoffs, and the Bulldogs secondary was the story all game. This interception sets up a Xavier Purrier touchdown run. Then the Bulldogs defense bats a pass into the air. Keelan Williams takes it to the house. Heath head coach Tim Ward discusses the defensive game plan executed by the Bulldogs.
We just we locked in early in the week. We had the guys come in. We did a couple things that we haven't done before, and they bought in. They were in the film, and they just kept, like I said, locked in. Coach Eckert and Coach Kratzenberg did a really good job putting in the little bit of a different coverage, and we went with it.
Heath's passing game got going. Here's a Reese Huber catch and run for 6.
We're looking at the field, and we were seeing the gaps in the defense, and we were making the plays, and our freshman QB, Braden Millis, was delivering the ball.
Week 8, but he's not a freshman anymore because he was a freshman during the regular season. We're in a second season now. We're in the postseason. So we told him the other day he's not a freshman anymore. He's got to step up. He's got to lead.
Huber gets it done on both ends. This INT is going all the way to the house. Bulldogs defense scores 2 touchdowns. They only conceded 1 as Heath wins 2 playoff games for the first time in a season.
We have 3 goals at the beginning of every year, no matter what the caliber of our team is. We always have the goal of winning a league championship, making the playoffs, and competing at all levels. And then once we achieve those goals, then we start talking other goals. And once we found out everybody was in the playoffs this year, we're like, hey, let's go ahead and make history.
Heath will move on to take on Licking Valley, who has won this region the past 2 seasons. So it should be a very tough matchup in that one. Thanks for the good work, Michael. Now we head over to a different matchup, this time one with a lot of high-scoring action. We had the Philo Electrics taking on the Meadowbrook Colts in one that would light up the scoreboard, as I had just said. And of course, only one team could survive and advance. Reporter Nick Henthorne was out of that game to see who would get it done.
The Meadowbrook Colts and the Philo Electrics, both teams that ran over their first playoff opponents, well, they ran into each other on Saturday. A whole lot of scoring, 89 combined points. But you wouldn't be able to tell from the first quarter, both teams were moving the ball, especially Meadowbrook. Philo struggled to contain a healthy dose of wide receiver screens from the Colts. But while the yards were there, the points were not. 8-3 Colts after the first quarter, but it's all highlights from here on out. At one point in the second quarter, we had 4 straight scoring possessions. These teams could not stop each other, and speaking of unstoppable, the 2 MVPs of this game were Davis Singleton for Meadowbrook and Casey Munyon for Philo. Singleton had the game of his life, but trust me, we'll get to him in a second. Munyon finished with 121 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. There were a lot of times he could have avoided contact and ducked out of bounds, but he was fighting for every yard this game. At halftime, the Electrics were right in it, trailed 22-17, but the second half was all Meadowbrook and all Davis Singleton.
I said before and I'll say it again, Davis Singleton had a monster of a game, 6 total touchdowns, getting it done both with his feet and in the air, a big ingredient to this Colts win.
There was nothing Singleton couldn't do on Eugene Capers Field on Saturday. Pinpoint accuracy, patience going through his reads, and the physical tools to take it himself when he needed to, which he did often. Really, all I gotta do is let the stats speak for themselves. 251 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 208 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, numbers you usually only see in Madden, and it looked like he was playing in easy mode with numbers like that. And it's hard to keep up with offense scoring like the Colts were, and although Philo at times looked like they could seize the momentum in this game, they finished with 37 points, but Meadowbrook dropped 52, highlighted by a 22-point third quarter. The Colts get to celebrate on their home field, beating Philo 52-37 and moving along in the playoffs. They're hoping the offense keeps moving along as well.
Meadowbrook will advance to take on Galley Academy next week, and as for Philo, they say goodbye to some of their key seniors from this past year. Thanks for the good work, Nick. Now we head over to Liberty Union, where the Lions have their first playoff game of the 2020 season, and reporter Claire Geary was at that game to see how they could do in their first game.
The Liberty Union Lions were ringing in victory on Saturday night over the Amanda Clear Creek Aces with a final score of 31-7 for their first postseason victory. Now the first points of the night were put up on the board by Casey Fleeman, which would have been one of the many touchdowns Liberty Union would score for the night. Sophomore quarterback Caden Carroll didn't look like a young quarterback with his composure on the field and the ability to move the ball via airmail or on the ground. Carroll had short passes that worked in players' favors, such as Jacob Denny, in addition to the 2 touchdowns he put on the board for the Lions. Carroll had a net total of 201 yards combined in rushing and in passing for the Lions.
This bell, the one behind me, is the one that the Lions rang at the end of the night to celebrate not only their victory, but their victories on defense as well.
The reason why the defense held the Aces to only a score was due to the big hits that came from the linemen, such as this one that was on the left side of the football field, and it resulted in the running man popping the ball out of his hands and Dylan Anthony recovering the fumble to add another 6 points to the board for the Lions. Now, reading miscues from the Aces was another strong point for the Liberty Union defense, specifically from senior Hunter Putnam, who had 2 interceptions on the night to seal in the win against Amanda Clear Creek. This offense and defense worked together as a unit, and you could tell the chemistry on the field was an unstoppable one in Baltimore. Coach Shirey mentioned the mental toughness of the defense and how proud he was to see them working together.
They played lights out tonight. They ran into the football. They hit hard. I mean, heck, we had, 3 turnovers. 1 for a touchdown return by Big Dylan Anthony. What a great play that was.
Community morale and chemistry on the field resulted in everyone going home successful. Reporting from Baltimore, Ohio for the 740 Zone, I'm Claire Geary.
The Lions will look to continue their march here in the postseason as they take on Ridgewood next week, and the Aces end their season at 4-2. Thanks for the good work, Claire. Now we move over to the Wellston Golden Rockets, who took on Johnstown Monroe, and this game was interesting through 3 quarters, but in the end, we found out which team took advantage late in this game. Reporter Joe Collins was there to see how the Golden Rockets fared in this one.
It's a battle in Division 5, Region 19 as the Wellston Rockets travel to take on the Johnstown Monroe Johnnies. We start early in the first. A miscommunication by Wellston leads to a fumble in their own territory, and the Johnnies fall on top of it. Wes Myers would cap off the drive with this 1-yard score to put the Johnnies on top 7-0. To the second, Wellston driving now. Jeremiah Frisbee is going to lob one to the goal line, and Big Hunter Smith is going to haul it in for the score. Easier than tossing a Frisbee. 2-point conversion would be no good, however. Right before the half, 10-6 now and 4th and goal. The Johnnies defense will not let the Rockets through and come up with a big-time stop to keep the score 10-6 at the half. We now go late into the third. Frisbee is flushed out of the pocket, throws on the run, and Brendan McConnell comes up with a fantastic diving interception. That may be a candidate for play of the week. The drive would be capped off by yet another Wes Myers running touchdown. And speaking of Myers, he had himself a day. 4 rushing touchdowns, including 3 in the 4th quarter alone. Head coach Mike Carter was quick to sing praise about his running back.
Man, he's not only for our football team, but in the school. He's a great leader. He has really done a fantastic job of making sure he's helping the younger kids and teaching them the right way to be a good student here in school, and also how to work as hard as you possibly can out on the field.
However, the biggest reason for the Johnnies' success was the play of their defense. On the night, the Johnnies forced 4 turnovers and were getting in the backfield and forcing Frisbee off of his rhythm.
Great job on defense. They really stuck to the game plan. All right, the defensive coaches did a fantastic job in making sure that we're filling our gaps and pursuing as fast as we possibly can. That's a very good football team that we played, and we knew that we needed to make sure that we gang tackled. So the defense did exceptional.
The Johnnies scored 21 in the 4th quarter as they run away with this game 31-6.
A tough way to end it for the Wellston Golden Rockets, but we know they will be back better than ever next season. As for Johnstown Monroe, they have a very tough matchup against Ironton next week. Thanks for the good work, Joe. Now we head over to Nelsonville, York, where we saw the 6th-seeded Buckeyes take on the 11th-seeded Sims Valley at Boston Field. And reporter Brian Kerb and myself were at this game to catch up on all the action. Of course, the Buckeyes looked like they were in control from the very first kickoff.
Yeah, the Buckeyes dominated pretty much throughout all 4 quarters, both offensively and defensively. They put on a good show for that crowd at Boston Field, which was pretty good because it got pretty cold at the end. Head coach Rusty Richards had his team well prepared for this one. On their first offensive play, Drew Carter airs one deep and finds Ethan Gale, and goodbye. 68 yards from Carter to Gale to open the score, not the last time we'll hear of that combo. Next Buckeye possession, Carter dumps one off to Jared Justice, and Justice does the rest of the work with his feet, 31 yards to the house to extend the NY lead.
Yeah, and after another touchdown pass from Carter to Gale, the Buckeyes opened the night with 21 unanswered points. The defense also wreaked havoc in that first half.
Oh yes, for sure. Sims Valley QB Luke Lath had heat in his kitchen all evening, and even when he found his receivers, the NY defenders were right there ready to make a play. In fact, the Vikings didn't move the chains until midway through the second quarter. That led to their only touchdown score of the evening, courtesy of Levi Neese.
Now, Nelsonville York went to the break with a 21-6 lead, and in the second half, the Buckeyes began to create some separation, didn't they?
Oh, definitely. The Buckeyes are firing right out of the gate. On their first possession, Hudson Starter gets the handoff, breaks it to the outside, and battles his way 31 yards into the end zone to extend the lead to 28-6. Next possession, the Buckeyes get the fullback involved. Colton Snyder muscles his way over the goal line to put 6 more on the board. And to put the icing on the cake, 1 more from Carter to Gale. Gale breaks not 1, but 2 tackles and goes the rest of the distance for the trifecta, sealing a 41-6 victory.
One of the biggest things about these Buckeyes all season long has been that Carter to Gale connection, and they connected 3 times for touchdowns. They were definitely in sync all evening long.
For sure, Drew Carter began to throw to Gale more often as the season progressed. Now it's clear that Gale is one of Carter's reliable targets. This quarterback-wide receiver relationship actually goes back to the summertime when the 2 practiced routes in their free time.
He's got these 2s over here, a couple days a week on their own, 6, 7 o'clock at night all summer. Even after 2-a-days, even when we were 0-2, these guys were over here staying. Like I said, I'd be at a meeting or something, come back out at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. We had 2-hour practice, and they're still out here just throwing. So it's just one of those things. I think he knows where he's going to be.
And with this 41-6 victory, the Buckeyes advanced to the regional quarterfinals. But Coach Rusty Richards had a little bit of a surprise for himself after the game, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he definitely did. One of the big traditions after a big win, the head coach gets a Gatorade shower. And that was no different as Rusty Richards got that treat from his team. Ethan Go actually tried to hold him back, but he dodged most of it and luckily didn't get too drenched.
Oh, I knew it was coming. I was trying to dodge. I think I got most of that. I missed 3/4 of the jug, so. But it's always good. I can take it. At least we're at home this week, so I don't have to ride home wet.
And of course, always fun to see some of those traditions play out as they did. This is only the 3rd time in team history that they have won at Boston Field. And of course, this is their first postseason appearance since 2017 where they had that magical run. So we know Coach Rusty Richards will have his guys ready to go throughout this postseason. Thanks for the good work, Brian. And that'll do it for us here at the 740 Zone. Coming into week 3 of the postseason, we have a huge slate of games coming up as we keep moving right along here into postseason play and as we go closer and closer to those championship games. And I am your host, Jacob Murray, signing off from the 740 Zone.